Welcome. I'm so excited to be here today. It's funny. I was thinking as I was preparing for today, I was like, man, I'm so excited about today. This is going to be so good. And then I thought, I've been excited about all the days because this is all my stuff that I think is awesome. So, all right, audio is good. Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, so day 11, we are going to talk about the theme for today is go to bed angry, unless you don't want to. But basically, what we're talking about is kind of some marriage advice that maybe you've been given or you've heard all of your life. And if your marriage doesn't work that way, I don't want you to feel shame about it. Basically, in a nutshell, we're going to be talking about how the marriage that you have is between you and your spouse. And you guys, as a couple, get to decide how you want it to go and what you want it to be like. And I want to tell you right now, there's no right way to do it. We all have different opinions and beliefs about what is right and what is good and how it should be done. And so often those shoulds get in the way of us creating a marriage that we really love and get in the way of us feeling how we want to feel in our marriage. And I want to tell you that it's completely fine to have a marriage that is different from your parents or your siblings or anyone else in your family or your friends, right? And no one needs to agree or be impressed or approve of your marriage except for you. Like, wouldn't it be fun to get to a place where you are impressed about the marriage that you have and you love the marriage that you have? And that's what we're going to. Oh, hold up. I'm back. Hold on. Okay, can you guys still hear me? So sorry. Little glitch we had. Anyways, what I was saying is we all just grow up thinking that there is a right way to do marriage. Let me give you an example. The other night I was coaching one of my clients and she was telling me how she yells. She's like, I've never yelled ever in my life, even with like other romantic partners I've had or with anyone in my family when I've been upset. And now I'm married and I yell, like me and my husband yell. And I said, okay, like, what are you making that mean? And she's like, well, that we've failed, that my marriage is a failure. And I was like, that's so interesting. So you just grow up with programming and maybe it's something like that, like yelling is bad and I shouldn't do it. And if I'm yelling, that means that our marriage isn't good or it's not strong or whatever. And I said, what if you yelling is the thing that keeps your marriage together? Right. And it's like, I get it. We all have things that we do in our marriage that maybe we don't love or we're not super proud of. And it's like there's things like that if you want to change, I'm all about you doing that. You know that. But I don't want you to rate the success or the strength or just the overall quality and goodness of your marriage based on outside factors from other people, right? Because it's just different for every couple and it's different for every marriage. Okay. So there's really not a right way, but you are going to get lots of messages from family, from media, from religion, whatever, that's telling you that there is a right way and this is a right way to do it. But I think at the end of the day, you and your spouse, you have to decide what's right or what works for you guys. What makes your marriage the kind of marriage that you want. And you have to be intentional about that. Okay? So, and I think the other funny thing that I wanted to mention is we're always comparing ourselves to everyone, right? And we compare our marriages and we think I have a client that came to me through one of my siblings. And so this client is always telling me like, "Oh, like your sibling's marriage, like I just wish, it was more like that." That's the thing. We see other marriages and we compare and we wish we had that. But I also want to say, you guys, you just never know. Every marriage has struggles. Every marriage has stumbling blocks. There are things happening in other people's marriage that you couldn't even possibly imagine when you see them all put together on a cute date at the movies or you see them in the pew at church, right? You never know what's going on for someone behind closed doors. And the only marriage you have complete insight into is your own. And so I think that's the one that's worth building and focusing on and learning to take control of yourself so that you can make it more of what you want it to be. Okay. The other piece, oh, so hello. So the theme for today, right? Or just kind of the topic, go to bed angry. I remember when Devin and I got married, one of my dad's secretaries came through our line and I love her. Like she is a dear person, dear friend. And she gave us some lovely gift. And then that's what she told us. She was like, just never go to bed angry. And I was like, okay, sweet. Like, whatever. I didn't know what it was like to be married yet. And I will just tell you, I'm better off if I go to bed angry sometimes. Right. So there's just no right way. And there's just messages and there's things you hear. So then I think, oh my gosh, am I bad? Because it actually serves me more to go to bed angry. I'm better to deal with conflict or annoyance or whatever that's making me upset. I'm better after a good night's rest. I'm not as upset. I'm not as riled. I have a different view. I'm not so tired. So that's just one kind of quirky, funny little example. But I want you to take a minute today to just question the beliefs or the ideas or the thoughts you have about what a successful marriage is, what it looks like, how it's run, however you say that. And then just decide like that none of it, there's not a manual. Did you get a manual when you got married that said, hey, here's the way to do it? Right? There's no manual. You do get to decide. But something that I love is you can take pieces, all kinds of things. Oh, I love this. I love the way that I saw communication modeled in this marriage. And I love what my church teaches about families. And I love that. That resonates so much with me. When things resonate with you and allow you to be more of the spouse that you want to be in your marriage, I think that's a beautiful thing. Another piece of advice that I have heard frequently is to make sure that you put your spouse's needs above your own. I've heard that a lot. And I think especially like just growing up, like, oh, like in a marriage, like it's about making the other person happy and making sure that they're taken care of. And I think it has good intention behind it. But at the end of the day, if if I am living to just please my spouse and make sure that he is all taken care of and all of his needs are being met, most likely my needs aren't. Most likely I'm neglecting myself. And I think it's a perfect recipe for a complete identity crisis, right? Anytime you live your life for another person or to make another person happy, it's not possible. You can't make anyone feel happy, no matter how good you are. And you are going to lose yourself. And if there's just that expectation, like, oh, it's my job to meet his needs and it's his job to meet my needs, I just think it's really harmful. I don't think it's helpful. So instead, I just remind myself, oh, it's my job to be aware of my needs and to meet them or whatever it is that my needs are. I first and foremost have to be aware of those things. And I'm going to be in charge of figuring out how to get those needs met. Right. So it's not like I don't need things from my spouse. I do. I just need him. I need him by my side. I need him to do life with me. Right. I want him to do life with me. I want him to be by me. That's why I picked him. Right. But at the end of the day, like I know what I need and I meet my needs. And then when I need help, I ask for help or I say something eventually. Sometimes I'm really bad at it. Okay. But just that whole idea, just wanted to speak to that for a minute. It's not your job to meet your spouse's needs. And maybe that might be a message that you've heard for a long time. And you might be thinking, I remember working with a client that was really worried about just like that would be so selfish. And I thought, but think about how you not paying attention to yourself and not meeting your own needs, you're totally neglecting yourself. And I was like, look at the results. Like, why did you come to me? You came because you're so sad, you're so discouraged, you're defeated, you're feeling like you've lost yourself. So obviously it doesn't work. Okay. So, and the thing we have to remember is you are a whole person and your spouse is a whole person. The phrase of like, you're my better half, you're my other half. Like, I get it. It's cutesy. But you're a whole person, and so is your spouse. Your spouse isn't a half. You aren't a half. You are two complete wholes that have decided to come together and make a go at life. But you're two whole, completely worthy, completely amazing, 100% lovable individuals that are doing life together. Okay. So I just wanted to speak to a few of those ideas that are kind of always floating out around there, maybe other things that you've heard. Okay, so now something that I want to tell you too, these are kind of action items, things that you can do that can be helpful. I think it's super helpful to understand, first and foremost, your personality, your tendencies, your preferences, know what your weaknesses are, know what your strengths are. And I get it. We're all super aware of our weaknesses. We could write an essay about it right now. But what are your strengths? But also just think about what do I prefer? You know, when there's when there's a conflict or there's just some like awkwardness between us, do I prefer to talk about it right then and solve the problem? Do I prefer to think about it for a little bit and then approach them? Do I prefer to have some alone time, or do I prefer to do everything together? Like, just take into account yourself and what your personalities, your tendencies, your preferences are. And then think about your spouse. What's their personality like? What do they tend to prefer? What are they more excited about or more not excited about? And just take it in as a whole. Like, consider all of that, I guess is the beautiful word I'm looking for. Consider all of that and just know that there's not one thing that's going to fit perfectly. You're not going to fit in this perfect box, right? It's like we talked about on day 10. You have differences. You're different people. But when you can take into account like, oh, I just know myself, and I know that when there's a conflict or something weird going on, I tend to shut down and I don't want to talk and I want to be alone and I don't want to say anything until I feel better, but I actually know that hurts me. So knowing that about myself, I tried to do preventative things. I try to be like, okay, Heather, you're feeling that weird feeling. You're being weird around him. Schedule a chat with him. I know you hate it, but that's what you need to do, right? Just being more self-aware allows me to be a better partner. And then I like to have awareness about my partner and what I know he prefers and what he's like and just what his personality is like helps me to show up the way that I want to show up as well. Okay, someone says, when there is conflict between, I prefer to not talk about it at all. My spouse gets so angry that I don't want to talk about it, but his anger gets me to not want to talk even more. What a vicious cycle. Yeah, but you seeing that it's a cycle is helpful. I know it sounds silly, but just knowing that it's a cycle is helpful because a cycle only works if every part contributes, right? So if you if you just change one part of that, it's not a cycle anymore. So you might just want to ask yourself, and I can kind of read between the lines here. I'm imagining you don't want to talk about it because you're thinking, well, anytime I try to, my spouse gets all angry and that makes me feel even more bleh. So of course I don't want to do that. But you might just want to spend some time understanding that for yourself. Why is it that you don't want to talk to your spouse when there is conflict? What are you really afraid of? Or what are you making the conflict mean? Okay, you want to get some good awareness around that. And it makes sense. You're like, oh, my spouse gets so angry so that I don't want to talk about it. But do you see how you're also giving like spouse the power? You're like, listen, I can't talk about it because you get all angry and then that makes me even more mad. No, it's just like, okay, yeah. Sometimes spouse has some elevated emotions, or this is his tendency. This is kind of what I know about him. Okay, knowing that, so you already know that, let that be power for you. Okay, knowing that that's how he deals and that's how he responds. Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? Do I really just want to withdraw and not talk at all? Or just like let your brain be creative and let your brain recognize that there's totally lots of other options and ways to do conflict and to have a conversation when you are feeling off, right? Don't tell yourself that the reason you don't do it is because your spouse gets angry, because it's probably just like a blanket over something. It's like a Band-Aid hiding something. What other reasons do you have? Does that make sense? Okay, someone says, I remember I watched the film Jerry Maguire and that scene in the elevator where she says, you complete me. I think I've got this perfect picture of marriage, but that's not my reality. I wish I could let go of this scene as a benchmark. You can let go of it right now. I'm giving you full permission. Let's do it right now. And I can totally relate to that too. And right, this whole idea of a soulmate, like finding a soulmate and finding that person that completes you. It's like, if that works for you and that serves you, amazing, keep it. But like our friend is saying here, that idea is just painful for her because she's assuming, okay, like perfect picture marriage, you're going to complete me, but Meanwhile, back at the ranch, your marriage isn't perfect and you're not feeling complete. But can I tell you something? No other person can make you feel complete. Okay. You feeling complete is going to come from thoughts about yourself, thoughts about your spouse, whatever your situation is. Like you feeling complete, you can generate that for yourself if you want to. And so maybe just try to kind of start shaking this scene. It's like, remember that it's a movie. And so many things you see in movies are just like, that's not how it is, right? When I watch like romantic comedies or whatever, it's just like, that's why we like them so much. We're drawn to them because it's not real. We all wish it was that way. We all want it that way. And that's why we're so drawn to these movies and these stories, because it's just like, oh, because we just get to be in their story for a little bit and we love how it makes us feel. And then we come back to our reality and we're like, oh, sad. But that's why it's a movie, because it's not real. And I mean, that's not to say that you can't create an amazing relationship where you feel electric and amazing. I totally think you can. But just remember that, oh, this was just a movie. And it totally makes sense that ever since I've seen that movie, that I've just kind of perceived this picture perfect marriage. But the reality is, and then be honest, what is the reality of your marriage? Like, get that out. This is the reality of my marriage. Being honest with yourself about where it is today. And then you can think of like, what do you want it to be? And it's like, honestly, you don't even want a picture perfect marriage. It'd be so boring, I promise you. And there would be no opportunities for growth. And it's like through the hard times when you struggle and you're upset with each other, but you work it out and you figure it out, your bond gets tighter and stronger and better. So just know, of course you can let it go. And maybe just telling yourself like this has been a benchmark. I don't think that's helpful either. Right. And I'm not telling, it totally makes sense why you've thought that. I'm just saying, let's just give it some wiggle room. Let's start doing a little bit of work around it so we can loosen that up and just be like, that was in a movie and that makes sense. It makes sense that I was drawn to that. Everybody is drawn to that. But here's the reality of my marriage today. This is what my marriage is like today. But that doesn't mean that something better isn't available to me. Of course it is, right? And it doesn't need to be perfection in order for it to be something you love and something that is good. Okay, someone else says, my spouse and I have no common interests anymore. Can the marriage survive? We are almost empty nesters, and I'm so worried that I won't have the kids anymore around to distract and occupy me. Yeah. So you know what, friend? I would spend some serious time with your beautiful self trying to understand this a little bit, and maybe not even understand it, but just let your thoughts out about it, right? It's like you're obviously kind of fearful about that next stage of life when the kids leave. And is it true that you and your spouse have no common interests anymore? I'm telling you that is a thought that's just coming up to you. And then your brain, because you believe that thought, your brain collects all this evidence. And it's like, yeah, see how you don't spend any time together or whatever it is. Your brain's going to collect evidence to support that story. So instead, maybe it's like, okay, the things that we both used to be interested in 10 years ago are different now. But hello, we live in this absolutely insanely amazing world. So I am sure there's lots of more things you guys could become interested in together if you wanted to, right? Like right now, it just seems so hopeless. And what am I going to do? Can the marriage survive? Of course it can. If you want it to, if you both want it to. And even if and I don't know where your partner stands. I don't know if they want it to, but I think even if you want it to survive and you take action from that place because you're committed and you're willing and you want to, that's going to be really beneficial for you, regardless of the outcome. All right. Someone says, how can I relate to my wife now? She seems like a total different person now. She no longer wants to do the things we used to love doing. I just miss my wife. Dude, yeah. I don't know. I just read that and I just want to tell you, like, did you know that you can grieve? That you can just be sad? And I don't mean like doing an activity and eating ice cream. Like, I mean like sitting there and getting your thoughts out about it and allowing yourself to feel that grief of like, man, you know what? She's just different and she doesn't want to do the things that we used to do anymore. And I miss her. Allow yourself to feel that, right? And then I think what you're asking is a really powerful and beautiful question. How? How can I relate to my wife right now? How can I love her as she is right now? How can I love her even though she seems really different than she used to be? And how can I love her even though she doesn't want to do the same things that we used to do? And it's just like the friend I was just talking to above before you, right? Okay, so don't let that mean that there's not new things you can't find that you both love. And I think taking an honest look at the question. So first, just like grieve, allow those feelings to come out, get all of your thoughts out about it, and then answer that question. How can I relate to her now? And maybe just trying to understand why. Why is she a different person now? And maybe we're making that a negative thing or a sad thing, and that's okay. Like, feel that. But then the other side of that coin is what an opportunity to get to love this version of her too, right? Like there's this new version of her in front of you. And what would that be like for you to learn to love her in this new way? And what experiences might that create for you? And, like what opportunities are you missing? How are you missing out on loving the person she is now by simply missing who she used to be? Does that make sense? All the while still allowing yourself to grieve that like you miss her and she's different. Do that. But then when you're ready to feel different and to feel love and to enjoy the woman that you have right now, that's the question. Look at this amazing human I have in front of me and this new version of her. It's going to be so fun to learn to love her. It's going to be so fun to learn more about her. I think that can be a really powerful thing to do. I got a drink. Hold on. Okay. Someone else says, I get so angry at my husband. I go to sleep mad all the time. I wake up in the morning still angry. Anything practical to manage my anger? Sometimes I feel crazy. He then calls me a crazy woman, and I am so afraid that he's right. Yeah. All right. So we got a few things going on here. You say, okay, is there anything practical to manage my anger? So something that you can do is when you're feeling really angry, ask yourself now, what do you do? Like, what's your behavior now? Like, I know you're saying you go to sleep mad all the time, but when you're feeling a lot of anger, what are your actions? Like, take some time to kind of look at what you do. You feel anger, and then what do you do? And then what's the result you get from doing those things? And then you want to try to start to pay attention to what are all these thoughts, right? What are the thoughts that are creating this anger? Because right now you think it's husband. You think husband and what he is doing, what he's not doing, whatever, is creating your anger. But the truth is your anger is stemming from all of these thoughts in your brain. So it's going to be really helpful to get those thoughts out. You want to understand what they are. You want to be able to question them. You want to be able to ask, okay, do I want to keep believing this? Even if it's true, y'all, just because something is true doesn't mean you need to keep thinking and believing it. I think that's something so powerful that no one ever tells us. Just because something is true doesn't mean you have to believe it and spend all your energy thinking about it, right? So do that. Try to understand what it is. What are your thoughts that are making you angry? That doesn't mean you necessarily need to change, but I'm sensing that you're not loving this version of yourself, right? So you can do that to kind of just start to better understand your anger. And then, yeah, this whole part where you're like, he calls me a crazy woman and I'm so afraid that he's right. Sometimes I think this can feel kind of weird, but is there any part of it that's right? Are you a little crazy? And like, don't be so offended. It's just like, aren't we all? Yeah, dude, I'm for sure crazy. We're all a little crazy. Like, what are you making it mean that he's calling you a crazy woman? And you're making it mean something bad because you're like, now I'm so afraid that he's right. But what does that mean? What is crazy woman? What does that mean? So I would unpack that. When he calls you a crazy woman, what does that mean? What are you making it mean? And why do you feel afraid that he might be right? What if he is right? What would that mean? Do you know what I'm saying? Like you get to decide. So again, it's just like we're giving husband all the power here. He's making us angry. He's calling us crazy. And then I'm feeling fear because, oh my gosh, what if he's right? And do you see like it's just taking you out of the equation? Like it just is like, oh, I'm a victim. This is just how it has to be. No, let's stop. Let's pause. Let's question all of this. Let's own it. We're not a victim. Let's own it. Okay. I'm feeling super angry because I'm thinking, let's take a look at those thoughts, try to understand them, and then let's unpack it. Why does it affect me so when he calls me a crazy woman? What am I making it mean? Because you don't have to believe all that. You could just be like, right, dude, I am crazy. And I love it. I love crazy me. You're so lucky to have me. There's so many other options out there. Whereas you're just taking it to be like, oh, the end all. And oh my gosh, what if he's right? So what? What are you making it mean? Okay, someone else says, when I am angry, I don't cook for him. I stomp around. I don't look at my texts from him. So I make him wait for a response. Oh, I got you. I'm firing. This is the person talking to the other one. Okay, hold on. And when I'm angry, I sort of feel that I don't even like him anymore. Okay. Yes. Okay. Sorry. So let's rewind. So this is the same person. So when they're saying, okay, I get really angry at my husband, I go to sleep mad all the time. So now she's telling me, okay, this is what I do when I'm angry. So when she's angry, she doesn't cook, she stomps around, she doesn't look at the text from him. And then she's like, I start to feel like I don't really like him. And then she says, okay, I think I'm a bit crazy now. But listen to me. You aren't crazy, right? It's probably not helpful for you to think that. It's like some of your behaviors seem a little crazy, but I don't want to say crazy. If crazy is like a triggering word that's not serving you, cut it out. But it's just like, oh, that's fascinating. When I'm angry, look at how I act. I'm like, no food for you, stomping around. I'm not going to read your text messages. You can wait for a response, right? And you're like, actually, I don't even like you. Okay, so do you see it? Like, and this is just what happens. Relationships are just mirrors. So you're so mad at your husband, but then you kind of reciprocate similar behavior. And like we're so confused as to why he's being like, you're a crazy woman. It's like, oh, I am doing some things that are a little interesting, but they make sense. You're taking that action because you're feeling angry. So the next step for you, and I love this that you figured out your action. So then the next thing you want to tap into is, what are your thoughts? What are the thoughts that you are thinking that are making you angry? And try to separate, like, it's not spouse that's making you angry. It's your thoughts about his actions or him as a person that's creating that anger for you. Oh my goodness, I'm actually crazy. I can see it now when you say it. Okay, hold up. But how does it serve you to believe that you're crazy? Does that serve you? I'm not telling you that you are crazy. Okay. I'm just saying, when you take a look at it, when you're so mad and you look at the action you take when you are mad, those are actions that you are taking, right? It's not like your husband has a voodoo doll and he's like making you do things. Like, you are acting that way because of your anger. So what are the thoughts that are making you angry? And what's the result of you like not cooking and not talking and being mad and not liking him? Disconnection, going away, not wanting to be with him. No wonder. It just makes sense. I'm not telling you that you're crazy at all. I don't. I think you're incredibly normal. Like, join the club, sister. I'm just saying it makes sense. This cycle makes sense, right? But it's really helpful to see our behavior and be like, oh, we're always doing this. We just want to point the finger. Like, it's him. He's the reason I'm so ticked off all the time. And he's the reason I can't get what I want. But then when it goes this way, it's like, oh, shoot. But actually really good, because you have complete control of yourself. We can't change husband or wife. I don't know how to do that. When I learn it, I'll be a millionaire and I'll teach y'all. But until then, all you can control is yourself, right? Okay, it helps me to see that I am not even aware of how crazy that I have been. So that's the thing. I don't call yourself crazy. Let's separate you from your actions. Like, oh yeah, you've been taking some action that you don't want to take, that's been driven by anger, that's been created by thoughts in your brain. That's like the way I would think about it. Okay. So yeah, that is very useful, but never, never, never use this to beat up on yourself. And I'm so bad and I can't believe I've acted this way. Because as we talk about it, of course you've been acting that way. I think most of us would be like, yeah, same girl, same. We would do that same thing. It makes a lot of sense. So don't be so judgmental about it. You want to be really curious and be like, dude, that is fascinating. When I'm mad, I'm just like, I totally withdraw. I punish him because I feel like he's punishing me. But what are the thoughts? Dig in around there. Yeah. Amazing work. Thank you for sharing all that. Such good stuff. Okay. Let me come back to these. Let me see if there's anything else we want to cover here. Oh, just one other thought that I wanted to share is learn that what you may want, like how you want to be treated or responded to or loved. Like you could go into love language here. I don't do like I'm not going to teach you love languages, right? You can go do that. But I'm just saying sometimes what we want from our spouse, how we want them to show us love might be different from the way that they want to receive love. So I'm just saying take that into account, right? Like it might be different. What I want to receive from my husband may be different from what he wants to receive from me. And I think just taking into account, again, personalities, tendencies, all of that can be really helpful. And I just also want you to know that you can live independently together. What I mean by that is, again, going back to you are a whole person, they are a whole person. You're going to have different likes, different schedules, different preferences. And that doesn't mean that you can't be this amazing team and have this amazing marriage, right? My husband and I are very different. We do different things. We often go to bed at different times, wake up at different times, and just do very different things. And that works really well for us. There's no right way. And it's like people in my family might think that that is just bizarre and our marriage is on the rocks because we don't go to bed at the same time. That's just not true. And that's the other thing that I want to tell you. People are going to have so many opinions about your marriage, about what you're doing and whether it's good or whether it's right or that's kind of dangerous or whatever. But you don't want to let those outside forces in. You want to keep your marriage sacred in this space where it's up to you and your spouse, right? And it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks about it. What matters is what you think about it. How are you feeling about it? Just allow people to be wrong about you and your marriage. It's okay. It's totally fine if you're different from your family. It's totally fine if you're that couple. Have the courage to be, right? If you just live to create a marriage that your family or your girlfriends will be impressed by, you'll most likely be really unhappy and exhausted. Okay, so this is all yours. That's one of my most favorite things in the world about being married is it's just mine and it's Devin's and we let God in our marriage. Like that's it. It's just ours. And so with that being said, respect that space. Don't air your spouse's dirty laundry with your mom or your girlfriends. Like let it be yours. Let's keep it really intimate and sacred. Let it be yours. That doesn't mean to say when there's struggles or challenges that you feel like you need help with, that's different, right? Okay, my beautiful friends, do we have any more questions or comments or anything else? Thank you so much for everything you brought to class today. It's amazing. So good. So good. But just remember, if there's anything that you take away from today, just know that there's no right way to do it. And you can just look at how are we doing it now? What are the things that I like? What are the things that I don't like? Are there things that I want to change or modify or try? And know that you have the complete freedom to do that because there's no rules. There's no right way. You and your spouse just get to decide. You can go to bed angry if you want. I give you full permission. All right. But if you don't want, you don't have to do that either. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends, for day 11. It's been fantastic. And we will see you for day 12 so soon. Okay. Take care.